Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are watching from. We have our array of subjects for today. We are going to be talking about travel predictions, but of course, I do have some travel updates for you for what's been happening this week because it's been a pretty interesting week, that's for sure. It was a holiday weekend for quite a few of us. We had Family Day here in Canada, so Monday was the holiday, and I believe it was President's Day too in the US. So lots of interesting stuff going on with that, as well as, of course, weather delays and the plane crash in Toronto, which I'm sure everyone has heard about now. Um, it was a small plane, an Embraer, I think, coming in from Minneapolis to Toronto, which is a very short flight. And basically, it did a hard landing and basically flipped over. So people were upside down within the plane. Not sure. They figure they will know by the end of this week as to what the cause of the crash was because they've retrieved the black box and they have the um, encoder. I want to say the other box that they have because there's always two. So we should know later this, or they will know later this week as to what the actual cause of the crash was. But that may not be released to the public right away. In fact, almost certainly won't be. But they have talked about it a little bit and basically said some of the experts have said was potentially crosswinds, and meaning if the plane's coming into land like this and you've got winds coming in, it was about a 30-degree angle from hitting it from the side. That may have been a cause. Also sounds like there might have been an issue with one of the flaps. I think that was one of the first things that came out. And also rate of descent has been discussed. So I don't know if it's anything to do with pilot error or just because of the storm. But it closed the entire airport down for initially they were saying it was going to be closed down for 12 hours. I'm not sure what in the end how much it actually was shut down. I know between the storm and the crash causing two of the runways to be disabled. I know Air Canada said they had 1,300 flights that were canceled on top of anything that was delayed because of those two issues. And then, of course, there's WestJet, Porter, Delta Airlines, United, anybody else who's flying into Toronto would have been impacted, and flights were rerouted fairly successfully to other neighboring airports, Ottawa, Montreal, Sudbury. Also, some flights were diverted to, I know one of the planes went into Pittsburgh instead. My guess is that if you were coming from international, as opposed to cross-border, that if it was international, they would have made every effort possible to land somewhere in Canada. Whereas if it was a US originating flight, they may have had that opportunity to stop in a US city. And part of that is just because of people perhaps being allowed or not allowed into the country. If you've been denied entry into the US, that's going to be a bit of a problem if your flight has an emergency landing there. So yeah, but it sounds like for overall everything worked out. There were some injuries on the flight based on the flight essentially hard landing and then flipping over onto its roof, for lack of a better word. And but there were no fatalities. So touch wood, everybody recovers from this. I'm curious, would you fly again if you landed so hard that you bounced and then ended up flipping over with one of the engines bursting into flames and landing in a cloud of smoke and fire upside down? Would you fly again? I mean, I want to say that I would, but I think my first landing after something like that would require um, medication or liquid medication, if you know what I mean. I don't know. I'm curious. For all my regulars out there, would this be a game changer? Would this be a game ender for you? Or would you get back up on that horse and persevere? Let me know. Let me know in the comments. Okay, moving on. So there's a bunch of tragically bad misinformation out there these days. Oh, and speaking of which, I want to correct myself. I did last week mention about the new Hyatt Vivid that's opening up in Punta Cana. However, I mistakenly said it was a switchover of the wrong hotel. I said it was a switchover of the Jewel Punta Cana. In fact, it's the Jewel Palm Beach Punta Cana, which is just south of the Rio and the Bavaro Beach area where I was just staying a couple weeks ago. Is currently closed. They're doing renovations on it, and this is going to be opening in, they say by the end of Q3. So by the end of September, they're hoping that this will be open as the new Hyatt Vivid Punta Cana. And they also announced the Hyatt Vivid Acamel, which we still don't know which property that's going to be, but all indications would suggest it is not a new build, but it will be a resort somewhere in the Acamel area. Given that there aren't that many, my guess is that it's going to be a purchase of the privately owned Acamel, what was it, spa and wellness resort? But that's purely guessing on my part. I don't know. I'm just trying to think what other hotel it could possibly be in that area. So stay tuned for more on that one. And for those of you who have asked, yes, I will follow up with more information on these properties as we get more information. And as soon as we get some renderings, I'll do a video for you so you can get to see what it's expected to look like. So stay tuned for that. Okay, so visa for Mexico. There have been a few TikToks about this, that with perhaps a changing, we'll say, relationship between Mexico and the US, that Americans would be required to have a visa to enter Mexico. There's always been the FMM, the formed migration, but they have gotten rid of that in Cancun. So now, basically you show your passport and you're walking in. So no, there is no passport required. And also, what's the other thing? So yeah, there's no visa required. And what's interesting is people who've done TikToks to refute this have basically had a ton of people commenting and saying, "Oh, you're wrong, you're wrong. My travel agent, my friend, my neighbor said blah, blah, blah." So the fact of the matter is, no, at this point in time, you do not require a visa to travel to Mexico from the US, nor from Canada. You do need to fill out the visa tax form. That is legally required. And if you do not pay it in advance, it is $2 more. It's 283 Mexican pesos. So it's about $15 Canadian, maybe about 10 or 12 American, probably less. If you pay it at the airport, they're going to charge you $2 more, and you're also going to pay 16% tax on it because it is a transaction that is being completed in Quintana Roo. So it's just easier to pay it up front. They have deployed many, many agents now to confirm on arrival that you have paid this, and it is directly tracked to your passport. So even if your neighbor, your friend, your coworker all said they went and nobody asked them for it, last time I came back, nobody asked me for it, doesn't mean it's not listed in a computer somewhere as to whether or not I paid it. So, you know what, like I've said this time and time again, I'm going to say it for the 75th time, pay it. And then you don't have to worry that you're going to get delayed the next time you arrive on vacation. Imagine arriving with a group of friends and you're the one who gets held behind because you thought you didn't need to pay it all these times and all your other friends just did. So, I mean, for that amount of money, just pay it. It's totally worth it. Bojangles, hi Bojangles, would not be able to bring myself. Yeah, I know it's a tricky one. Shame. I'm assuming you're watching this from wintry Canada this week, after being in sunny Mexico last week. Welcome home if you are home. And yeah, that's a tough one. I think I would probably struggle to get on a plane, but I suppose it depends. I mean, from the little video clips that I've seen, it looks like the whole situation was handled very well. So, maybe if they knew that there was a mechanical issue and they told everybody in advance that it was gonna be a rough landing, then, if they were all calm and controlled about it, then I would probably feel better. But of course, being here on the opposite coast, well, they're not on the coast, but being here on the other side of Canada and just hearing reports of a plane crashed at Toronto Airport, it's kind of like, oh, scary. Angelo, hey, Angelo, how are you? Um, we need you. Which property is becoming breathless Puerto Vallarta? You know what? It is, what was I looking at? I was thinking maybe one of the Crystal properties, but I'm not 100% sure. I haven't heard anything, I cannot confirm nor deny, which property it is. Nothing's been leaked, unfortunately, about it. We always want the inside scoop, right? Chances are you'll be back I think you're going next. Is it next? No, I think you're not going until March, or I don't know. I forget. I know you're going to Breathless Cancun and the Hyatt Vivid, so you'll probably know more before we will. Oh no. Plus 30 to minus 30. Oh dear. And for those of you who don't know, this is in Celsius. Bojangles is in Saskatchewan, I want to say. And yeah, so minus 30. And I have friends who are in Alberta. They were also at minus 30. I don't even know. I think at that level, it becomes equivalent to Fahrenheit. Let's see, 30 Celsius. Fahrenheit. What do we get? Oh, not 30 Celsius, minus 30 Celsius. Yeah, 30 would be a treat. So oh no, don't give me the equation to calculate it. Just tell me what it is. There we go, minus 22. Yeah, minus 22 Fahrenheit, minus 30 Celsius. So not overly hospitable temperatures to come back to. Visit tax. Oh, we actually kind of already touched on this one. So yeah, they are doing a lot of checking now. They've hired a bunch more people. It is being tracked again. And like I said, it did just go up to 283 Mexican pesos, but honestly, it's still cheap as chips. And it goes towards their infrastructure. Think about how much they've done in the last couple of years. The Tulum Airport, the Tren Maya, Mayan train, which, you know what? I haven't checked the status on that in a while. I don't have any immediate plans to go to Cancun, so I'm not sure how far it's going now, but I mean, that was a pretty skookum way to travel, that's for sure. Other than when I went, had only opened up for about a month and not a lot of information, which if you've seen my video about my experience, was an adventure. We like to call these travel adventure. So far this year, my first trip of the year started out with a travel adventure in as much as trying to get home after the snowstorm in Vancouver. So hopefully that's the last adventure of this year, but who knows? I mean, I seem to be prone for these things. Angelo is saying end of April. Yes. Oops, sorry. Not sharing this with you guys. Your PV is adding an entry tax as well, like Cancun. No, I had not heard that. So that's interesting. I'll see if I can find out more about that. Um, but I mean, well, I would argue that Puerto Vallarta is pretty straightforward. Like, there's not, I don't know. I mean, I guess my question would be, what infrastructure advancements are they trying to make there? I mean, getting around is pretty easy in terms of Uber or taxi. I mean, even the taxis aren't a bad price in Puerto Vallarta compared to Cabo, where I've paid sometimes 6 to 8 times as much to take a taxi as I would if I had taken an Uber. Um, so I'd be curious to see what they're planning to do with that and what the money is for. Obviously, they've got plans for something, but what would that look like? Okay, moving on to the next topic. So talking about the exchange and predictions for travel this year. So part of the reason why a lot of it is a reason why some Canadians are choosing not to travel to the US is simply and purely based on the exchange rate. Right now, for us to purchase $1, it costs us $1.42 Canadian. So when it's 40% more to go to Vegas, Disneyland, Disney World, any other theme park, Hawaii, for the snowbirds, they probably are already there. So not a big factor for them. They'll just enjoy coming home and spending a little bit less of their savings to buy groceries and stuff like that. Although, when you can factor in the exchange rate, but you also have to take a look at what the basic costs are by comparison. I've typically found that prices are lower in general for goods and services in the US, but I just also read that inflation is up again, higher than all of last year, something to that effect. So it's hard to say, but that's definitely a factor. I mean, when it's costing us 40% more to buy Disney passes, or putting $100 into a slot machine in Las Vegas actually costs us 140. Or if you want to put $1,000 in, that's $1,400. Um, that starts to hit the pocket a little bit. So, partly based on that, some of the airlines from Canada are announcing that they're going to be reducing their flights to certain destinations. I think Denver was one of them, Nevada for sure. Uh, so, and part of this is a weakened demand, and that kind of leads us into our next one, which is kind of a correlated topic, is travel boycotts. And we're not having a political discussion about anything here today, but what we know is that there are quite a lot of Canadians who are saying, for various reasons, that they are planning to avoid travel to the US this year. And whether you're watching this from Canada or the US, this is going to impact you, because if Canadians aren't going and they represent a certain segment of the market, a certain percentage of travelers to these destinations, then you're going to have decreased demand. And we know how supply and demand works. If there's less demand, then and there's extra supply, prices will go down. So if you live in the US and you're planning on going to Vegas, Disneyland, Universal Studios, Hawaii, maybe this is your time to do it. Because, as I say, we've got spring break coming up, and by and large, if people have made their plans to go to those destinations and they haven't bought cancellation insurance or insurance coverage, they would cover them to just change their mind. Then they will continue to travel. But most people, especially those with kids, sort of look forward as much as the next big holiday. So spring break, after that, they'll probably have nothing booked, because they're usually not thinking about Christmas travel. And by the way, pro tip, if you are planning to go away for Christmas, now's around the time that you want to start looking. As far as hotel availability and stuff like that, this will be the cheapest time to start looking for prices. So like I said, if you're planning to go away for Christmas, now's the time to look. Start figuring out prices, start figuring out where you want to go. And mark my words, if you keep track of the prices and you continue to wait, or you're waiting to plan with other family members, you will see the prices jump radically. So the other side of this is, if Canadians aren't traveling to the US, then they are still, especially, in this weather, although it's fairly pleasant today, but we've got lots of rain on the way. Other parts of Canada still, well, you saw Bojangles, -30 Fahrenheit, sorry, Celsius, minus whatever it was, 42 Celsius, but Fahrenheit, my goodness, can't keep it straight. I know Toronto, had buckets of snow. So for other areas, they are still looking to get out, and go somewhere sunny and warm. So for them, that's probably going to be Mexico. So that is going to increase demand for Mexico. So that is one area where, unfortunately, pretty much everybody, and it'll be good for Mexico. But as far as prices and demand goes, increased demand, increased prices. So, maybe this year you need to be a little bit more strategic. Um, Cruises, another one that we're seeing a lot of cancellations on. So any cruises departing from the US, any cruises going to Alaska, lots and lots of cancellations. So, if you're an American and you had thought about doing an Alaska cruise, this is your year to do it. Take advantage of the fact that some of these uh, cruise lines and routes are going to have some bounce back inventory from the cancellations, and there's probably going to be some really good prices out there. So maybe this is your year to cruise. Same thing for Mexican Riviera, or Caribbean cruises. Again, I think you're going to see a little bit less. And I know that Canadians don't make up a massive amount of, especially in the Caribbean. We're probably a very small fraction of the overall people cruising, but nonetheless, every little thing has an impact. So, like I said, maybe this year is just a year to be a little bit more strategic about where you're going. Keep an eye on the prices, and yeah, and keep an eye on things and see how they're going. But there's not been anything huge as yet. Like I said, there have been some cancellations. There's been discussions about less demand for certain destinations. So, the airlines are readjusting their routes accordingly. They want to keep the planes in the air and keep them full. So they're looking at alternate destinations for this. So yeah. Um, but like I said, keep an eye on things, and see where it all takes us. um, Trying to see what else I had for notes. That's kind of it. There was not much in the news this week for travel. We, like I said, there was the new openings, which we mentioned last week, or the new uh, announcements of openings, which we knew about the Hyatt Vivid Punta Cana, thanks to Angelo. Thank you for that, our inside guy. um, the Hyatt Vivid Acamel, that was a new one that surprised me. And yeah, I think that's kind of it. Um, I've been posting my videos of the Riu resorts in Punta Cana. I did just have to repost my Rio Bamboo resort video today. So apologies to those of you who got notification twice on that. But there was one clip in there where I had shown dance lessons, and the people doing the dance class at the Rio Bamboo Resort were largely clad in bikinis, and the bottoms were thongs. And because of the way YouTube does their ad rating system, that is considered, I forget what the word is, but suggestive clothing or suggestive body parts kind of thing. So I pulled that clip out and have reposted it. It's just a lot of people, when they look for my videos, they're searching based on keywords. And I didn't want them to not be able to see my video because YouTube had some restrictions on it. So just want to make sure that if people are looking for the information, they can find it, because that's what I'm here for, to help you find out more information. So that's, yeah, I'm kind of rambling now. Unless anybody wants to talk about other travel stuff, I'm happy to talk. But yeah, it is kind of a one-way conversation sometimes. Next week, what did I want to talk about next week? I didn't write it down, therefore I cannot remember. But I will try to get the topics out a little bit earlier, just so that you know what's coming up. And hopefully, we'll see what's going on in the news. Hopefully there's not too much more in the news. Hopefully there's no more weather delays. I did mention on my community post the other day, like, Sunwing has been in Canada here, has been particularly bad. I know this doesn't affect you if you're watching from the States, but just to give you an idea, we've got some people who have been stuck in Punta Cana, more so Cuba, for days. And Sunwing has been both good and horrific about it. Mostly terrible with the communication, but also they've been pretty good in that they have been good at announcing where, or they've been good at putting people back in their all-inclusive resorts. So it's not like you're just staying at some airport hotel, rushing to the airport and spending hours and hours there waiting for your next flight. Well, I mean, it has been like that for some people, but for the most part, for some areas, they have been pretty good about relocating people back to an all-inclusive resort. So then that's not too bad. At least get a swim in, and your food and drinks are covered, and so it's no more out-of-pocket expenses. Bojangles is saying, where am I off to next? That's a good question. I've sent in my passport application last week on Tuesday. I checked the status this morning, and because I said I didn't need it very, very soon, I didn't pay extra to have it picked up. They basically didn't even allow me to have that option to go in and pick it up from the passport office. So it's being mailed to me. As of this morning, it's in Richmond, which is where all the mail comes in, Richmond, Vancouver Airport. And it just needs to be sent out. So should have it today or tomorrow. So 1 week turnaround without paying for any expedited completion. Pretty darn good. So Bojangles, if you need to get your passports done, now's a good time to do it. So I'm not sure. A friend of mine wants me to go to Cabo, so that's an option. Another friend of mine, Tammy, is going to Mazatlan at the end of March. So that could be an option to, well, I could surprise her if she isn't watching today, but she probably is. So I could, we might join her, or there's an option just for me and my husband to go to Cabo, but probably it's going to be somewhere in Mexico, probably Cabo, probably possibly Puerto Vallarta would be another option, or Mazatlan. So one of those three, but nothing concrete, which really, really sucks. It's nice. I mean, I wanted to get the passport because without the passport, obviously you can't go anywhere. But it's nice to, when you come back from a vacation and you're already thinking about your next one, instead of, oh, well, I'm just going to be home for a while and it is what it is. It's always nice to have something coming up. Angelo, no, you know what? That is one country I have not been to. It's very similar, other than the temperature, but it's very similar to BC. It's why I've never really had any desire to go to New Zealand, because it's, very green, very lush, which, I mean, that's what we have here. I mean, we're North America's only natural rainforest, is Vancouver Stanley Park. So yeah, it's just never really been on my list. I mean, they've got lots of reviews, they've got lots of dreams, resorts, secrets. They got lots of good quality properties, as well as higher end ones and more basic, cheap and cheerful ones. But no, I've not been to any of those resorts. So couldn't tell you pretty much anything about those. But I think I would consider it. I would consider it. Um, to me, though, the big thing is the beach. And you could argue that Puerto Vallarta, for example, doesn't have great beaches. But if you go to the Hyatt Vivid, Hyatt Ziva, Puerto Vallarta, the water there is incredibly clear. It's not uncommon to see whales right from the hotel. Of course, all the rooms are ocean facing. And yeah, so I mean, the sand may not be the greatest, but the views are great and the water is clear. Uh, Cabo, mostly you can't swim in the ocean, so that would arguably not be a great beach, and it's really hard to walk on. Like it's like walking in powder snow. You put your foot down and you go to move forward, and instead of having traction and moving forward, your foot actually slides backwards. So you're almost like doing a forward moonwalk where you're not making much progress whatsoever. It's kind of frustrating. Um, but yeah. Well, Angela, why don't you go to the Vivid? Go to the new Vivid when it opens. The one in Punta Cana, or go to the one in Acamal. I mean, that seems like a no-brainer to me. Jeremy and Wendy and their significant others, they might be going too, so that could be a hoot. It would be like get a reunion of all the OGs from the Hyatt Vivid opening. So yeah, that could be fun. Um, but yeah, that's what I would say. And we've talked about it as well, as perhaps going for the not the very, very beginning opening of Hyatt Vivid, but as much as it's a pain in the butt to get to Punta Cana, I would be open to considering going and checking it out. It'd be interesting to compare, especially um, comparing it to Cancun. So yeah, we'll see. We'll see. Who knows? All right. Well, I'm going to drop it now, or drop it for now. If you haven't already done so, please consider giving this video a thumbs up, and don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss out on future videos. And again, the Ryu bamboo, if you haven't already seen that video, I just reposted, I posted an updated version. If you've already watched it, you feel free to go ahead and watch it again so you can tell what the difference is. um, but yeah, thanks for always tuning in, and I appreciate all your comments. It's always interesting to hear from you guys and hear what's new with you. I feel like you're kind of like my extended family now, because you always post stuff and tell me where you're off to and what you're doing and stuff. So yeah, yeah, sounds like a plan for sure. Um, yeah, so I always enjoy hearing from you guys and finding out what's new with you. Howard was just posting the other day about his daughter. She was stuck in Punta Cana, and he was actually saying how Sunwing actually did a really good job, despite the fact that they kind of got snowed out and blocked out of Toronto because of the crash, that they were doing a really good job with his daughter of basically saying, okay, come back at whatever time to the airport. We'll bring you here by a shuttle, and we're going to put you back in your all-inclusive resort. So, I mean, that's not bad. If you're sitting at the airport waiting and hoping for information, then that makes a snow delay not a good thing. As much as, yes, great, you're in a country that's warm, but you're inside an airport in a country that's warm, which may or may not have air conditioning, may or may not have Wi-Fi. But yeah, always makes it interesting. So thanks again for tuning in this week. And I'll get the topics posted for next week fairly shortly. But we'll be back on next Wednesday, 10 a.m. Pacific, and hope to see you then. Have a great rest of your day. Have a great weekend, and have a great week. And